Hello, it's Tessa back with you for another episode of Newscast. Today we're diving into the deep end, couldn't resist, with the Education, Sport and Culture Minister. Yes, we finally secured an interview with Julie Edge to talk all things Southern Swimming Pool. A quick recap if you're late to this story. In short, the department wants to close the pool by the end of March because it says there isn't, and I quote, enough money to maintain the status quo in this extremely challenging financial climate. The department claims that an additional £602,000 will be required over the next year, and there's no way it can increase the subvention it provides to the three regional pools, those in Castletown, Peel and Ramsey. Now, that recommendation comes after Tynwald asked the department and the Department of Infrastructure to compile a report into the development of regional sports hubs. That was back in January last year. 12 months later, Minister Edge will ask her Tynwald colleagues to back the recommendation to close down totally the pool in the south. It's a recommendation that has, as you can imagine, caused outrage in the local community since it was made public last Wednesday. Now, if you head to manxradio.com, you can find all the coverage of this story so far and hear from the MHKs in the south, who, it's fair to say, aren't taking this lying down. So what does Minister Edge make of that reaction? What does she make of claims that her department is discriminating against people of the south? Is she confident it will get its own way? And is she backtracking on her own manifesto pledges?
The recommendation that's come out of that is for the Southern Pool to close, and that the subventions that are provided by the department will go to support the continuing accessibility of the Western and Northern Pool.
You've been in politics for a long time. The communication around this from government's perspective seems to be quite slow. Why didn't government come out last week when this story broke and tell the public what was going on?
Obviously, we met with the Southern Pool Board only last Wednesday, and the sensitivities around this approach and obviously the recommendation. So we felt it was right to speak to the Southern Pool Board first, and obviously there was a situation there that it could impact their staff and the sensitivities around that. So at that meeting with the Southern Pool Board, it was requested that they speak to their staff and that we would not put any information out into the public till the Monday, so that they had ample opportunity to do that. Sadly, it was leaked by a letter, I believe, to Manx Radio, which I'm not aware of the content of, and that's what put us in, created the situation. So it's not that there wasn't to be a response from government. Certainly, I am aware now that the employees in Southern Pool have been spoken to. It's just timings really, that the first availability I had was Saturday. That didn't happen, so here we are today. I'm quite happy to always do interviews with regards to the department.
Let's come back to the subvention then. So your department provides £1.75 million in subvention for the regional pools each year. Now, in the grand scheme of things, for facilities that are used by thousands of residents, but to some that would be small change to a government department. It is obviously a lot of money to the man or the woman in the street, but £1.75 million, when we look at all of the money that government spends, does seem to be quite a small proportion. What is it about the Southern Pool that makes it the intended target for closure? Why has the report picked that one out versus the other two?
So there's certainly no targets in this. We've done a report and we reviewed all of the pools. The Southern Pool is 40 years old. It is requiring increasing amounts of additional funding for maintenance. However, the Southern Pool have had significant challenges with regards to the finances. The island is in difficult times financially, and the department has an allocated budget per annum. The subvention for the pools in reality has stayed static. However, the increased requests from all of the southern the pool boards, not just the southern, has been for additional funding. So during the crisis with energy we've supported all of the pools with an underwrite from what the Treasury Department have, and this year the increases that have come forward from the three pool boards has been for a request of an additional £602,000. Now, because that is over and above the previous subventions that the department can allocate from its budgets, and we've had our budget allocated to us for this year, we cannot afford to continue supporting £602,000 out of the Department of Education budget. So that's why this situation. However, throughout the report, it was quite clear that the Southern Pool was requiring significant support, and that was a Tynwald resolution that we would continue to support the Southern Pool until this report came forward. And our recommendation is for closure of the Southern Pool. It's 40 years old. It does need significant investment going forward. However, we've just made a recommendation that will go to Tynwald to be debated, and it will be decided on the floor of Tynwald.
You say, and your department says, that there is just no money. There is no money to be able to support this. So does that mean that this report has gone through sort of root and branch, everything your department does, everything it pays for?
Yes, definitely. Obviously, our budgets are challenged in many areas. Once it's allocated to us, we ensure that we allocate that appropriately and make sure the services have appropriate allocation. However, the requests that came in from the Southern Pool boards this year for the South was an additional 220,000 plus. The West were asking for an additional 183,000, and the North 198,000. Now we've had to take it on trust that they've provided us with the accurate information, and obviously, so we've then made that assumption that the additional amount required from the education budget is £602,000. We haven't had an increase within our budget allocation to cover that, so it would have to be found out of other services or other areas of the department.
The question that some people may ask is, why can't you go to the Treasury Minister, effectively explain the situation and ask for an increase to your budget?
So obviously the budget process starts a long time ago, and we've now had our budget allocated to us for this year. We always do go back to Treasury. There is that opportunity from our original submission to Treasury. We then have a meeting with Treasury, then there's an allocation, and then we always have the opportunity to go back to Treasury. However, with regards to the pools and the £602,000, some of this information that's come to us, it's quite clear from the report. A lot of it is energy costs. However, the Southern Pool Board subvention currently from the department is £434,000, and then to add this additional £220,000 on as well. That's what their deficit will be. Clearly, the boards are operated independently through the local authorities, and they've got representatives from the local authority commissioners. It's the commissioners that operate the pools, and that's the request that they've come forward to. And you know, for the future of swimming and ensuring that we do have a school swim programme, and we do want everybody on the island to have the opportunity and access to swimming. But per square metre of water on the Isle of Man is high. However, to maintain the pools that are not as old as the Southern Pool, we've had to look at it and see what's the best way to deal with this. So, you know, it is recommendation to close the Southern Pool, and we will see what the outcome is in Tynwald. It could change, you know, on the floor of Tynwald, but I do think it's the right thing from our department's point of view to go to Tynwald with that recommendation and have the debate on the floor of Tynwald. But as I said to you at the very start, there's been numerous reports about swimming pools over the years, and I do think it's time when particularly the financial situation for the island and the challenges that we have financially for all departments, not just the Department of Education, that we have that debate, and there's a good understanding of some of the significant decisions that need to be taken, and they are tough decisions.
And I appreciate that, but they come against a backdrop of people's perception that government does actually have quite a lot of money to spend, because people do see it when government projects spiral out of control, and there is millions upon millions of pounds being spent on projects. Let's take the Liverpool ferry terminal, for instance. we're talking £70 million plus. It's gone over budget. It's delayed. I would bet that many people on the island will never step foot in it. But there's money for it. This is a facility which is used daily by hundreds, if not thousands of people, and there isn't the money for it. Can you appreciate that that is difficult for people to accept?
I do, and however, when you're doing a national decision of this nature, you need to look at what we can do for the future around the access to swimming pools, the island, and people's well-being. Certainly, we've looked at all of that within the report. But this is a national decision to look at the South. It's 40 years old. It does need some work and significant investment in it. And you've just talked about the Liverpool ferry terminal. I can't comment about the process around that at that time. What I can comment on is that plan and the design that we are going into for initially the secondary school site, but the whole of the site, we've taken a national strategic look at the South and what that design will come up for the South, and that will be multiple years of investment into the south of the island, and it's not just a one-off project. I think that's what nationally politicians should be doing.
The DESC also says that it's explored all options to ensure children in the community will still be able to attend their lessons, their clubs, still enjoy swimming. So what is the plan if the pool is closed? How are they going to continue to do all of those things?
So as a department, obviously we have responsibility for school swimming, and we have spoken in the department about how we could operate that, and our Southern MHKs have been spoken to by my chief officer, my head teachers, not MHKs, as to how we could plan and work that, and we're confident that we could ensure that the same programme continues for the primary school children in the south. We have other primary school children in other parts of the island travelling significant miles to get to a swimming pool. I'll pick one out of the Air Laxey. It's sort of in the middle of, it could go to Douglas, it could go to Ramsey. So we do have other schools that have to travel distances to get to swimming pools. But the priority here is to make sure that we do ensure we live on an island. We need to make sure that children have access to being able to swim because we're surrounded by water. And we will make sure our children are a priority to receive swimming lessons going forward.
So have you costed how much it would cost if you, for instance, all the schools that use the pool in the south have to say travel to Peel, have to travel to Douglas, or have to travel to Ramsey? Has your department actually costed that?
Well, we've looked into that. However, until this goes to Tynwald and the decision is reached, I couldn't say to you there's the fully costed plan, because until it's been to Tynwald and the decision comes out of Tynwald that our recommendation to close happens, and that's a significant piece of work to carry out. We've got a rough idea. However, once this goes to Tynwald, and I think from the reaction that we've had so far, there could be a different approach that comes to Tynwald that we don't know about as of today. So we are still going to Tynwald with a recommendation for pool closure.
But would it be fair to say that the cost of shipping children around the island so that they can maintain their swimming lessons, etc., is going to be less than what you were giving the Southern Pool in subvention? Because if it isn't, then it almost sort of seems like it defeats the object.
So if you think about the initial first year costs of this recommendation, it will be higher in the first year, but going forward from that, it would be mainly costs for transportation of our students. We're already transporting students to the Southern Pool from all of our southern schools. But the additional mileage to get students to either the NSC or whichever pool it was, obviously would be costed. But there is significant savings around following on from that first year The first year would be the most costly, but going forward it would just be costs for transportation.
Just for absolute clarity, are you saying that no exact predictions on cost savings have been made and they won't be made until you get a yes or a no on the recommendation, but you've got a sort of rough idea?
Education is very good at contingency planning for children, for any situation. So, a snow day this week, there's contingency planning in place. So all of that contingency planning has been thought about. How we would do the logistics of all of this has been thought about, but I couldn't say to you now the cost of this is £20,000 per term or anything like that. I'm happy to if we have that information following the debate and the outcome of the debate and what way we're going forward, happy to share anything. I want to be open and transparent about this whole process.
We have heard a lot of reaction about this proposal. We've heard it from the southern MHKs as well as their constituents. It's an appalling decision. It's no way to run a country. It's a national issue. One MHK told us that he thinks people in the south of the island should feel betrayed by the move to close this pool. There is also an allegation that's circulating that your department is actually discriminating against people who live in the south of the island. This is your chance to respond to that. What do you say back to that?
I don't like using the word disappointing, but some of the rhetoric that we've heard around this, there's been many briefings with my honourable colleagues in the south, the MHKs. Certainly they were aware of the master plan for the Castletown site and the inclusion of a swimming pool last February. And they've seen that diagram and that discussion took place with my chief officer. We had a briefing with them. It's very disappointing. I completely understand the public's concerns and access to swimming pool and swimming lessons in going forward. However, when you look at the data around all of our swimming pools, they're all accessed by people from around the island. It's not just people from the south that access the southern pool. It's same at the western and same at north. However, I feel the most important point to make with regards to some of the language that's been used is the amount of work that's gone in. It was a Tynwald resolution a year ago to come back with this. We've come across the first challenge for this government, and that is around swimming. Around swimming. It's one of the first significant challenges in very challenging financial times, and all MHKs are aware of that, and they know the difficulties that we're facing. I'm not saying that it's been an easy decision to come to, it isn't, but I'm very keen as a national politician to ensure that we are future-proofing the island. We want to attract people to the island. We've come up with a plan that matches and meets everything in the island plan that all of our MHKs have supported, and that design will come forward. A design team will be pulled together, and my department will be part of that. But I think that what we're doing is looking at the future investment for the south of the island to ensure that they've got amazing community facilities, and that's with the school, the swimming pool and sports complex.
And you mentioned the island plan there, and obviously politicians voted for the island plan, but the public, the general public, didn't vote for that. That wasn't something that was in anybody's manifesto at the general election. I just want to go back to the general election, actually, because in your manifesto, when you stood, you said, we must have a government that is open and transparent, with MHKs leading by example and listening to the voice of the people. Now, voice was capped up, extra emphasis, to enable vision and direction for our island with progressive reform. My next question is simple. Do you think you are listening to the voice of the people on this one?
Yes, certainly, because they want facilities, and they want good facilities in the south of the island. What we currently have is an independent board coming to my department, which I've been in this role now for 2.5 years, requesting more money. So we've looked at this strategically and the approach for making sure there's good facilities in the south of the island. But these are national assets, and we need to make sure that they're accessible to the public, but that they're cost effective, sustainable, and there for the future. And we will be open and transparent with it. The process is part of the design brief for Castletown High School site. And obviously it's a major development, and funding will have to come forward in phases, and that will be voted on in Tynwald again. So it's not that as a department our budget is finite, and this is a difficult situation for us to continue to support increased additional funding to the Southern Board. But what we do want to do is ensure that we're maintaining swimming and access to swimming across the island. And by doing this recommendation to Tynwald, that provides that security to the other pools that we can support them going forward. However, when this goes to Tynwald, depending on what the results of the debate in Tynwald are, if this recommendation doesn't go forward, we will need to look at that again.
Another point in your manifesto was that maintenance is as essential as capital schemes, and you said at that time we should be introducing schemes and policies aimed at encouraging the maintenance and retention of the current building stock and considering refurbishment rather than creating new high-cost capital schemes. Have you gone back on your word there?
No, I certainly haven't. Maintenance is key, but there's not been. I've been in this role from a minister's point of view for 2.5 years. As I've said to you, there's been reports for 20 years. The pool had a report 15 years ago saying it needed to replace still 15 years. I can only comment on what I've done since coming into my role, but I think there's been significant progress on replacement skill for Castle Rushen and future-proofing access to sports and the community by doing the overall site plan rather than just focusing on replacing a school on the site. I think we've opened up the access and maximised that site for the greater opportunities for the south and particularly for the Castletown area. I totally agree with maintenance. I can't comment on previous ministers or previous politicians as to why the investment hasn't come forward for the Southern Pool. What I can comment on now is that I think this is after pool's been there for 40 years. They've had challenges over Christmas with lighting. Those challenges probably are going to increase as the life of the pool increases. But the recommendation, and it is a recommendation, is full closure. However, once we have that debate in Tynwald, happy to speak any time about this up until that point anyway, but we don't really know whether that direction could change from Tynwald. But it's certainly the recommendation from the Council of Ministers to close this.
Because there is an accusation that actually the lack of maintenance has effectively allowed this pool to be sort of run into the ground. So whose fault would that be? Government's or the local authorities and the pool board? Who are we laying the blame at the door of here?
I don't think we should lay the blame at anybody's door. What has happened here is clearly there's been discussions, negotiations between the pool board and the previous management of the Department of Education. Everybody knows the challenges that this department faced, and it's been 3 years under a new regime, and moving forward and significant changes have happened within the Department of Education. However, it is, and certainly this happens throughout the board structure for the independent boards, they can come to government and request petitions for project plans to do things. There hasn't been a petition from the Southern Pool Board. They are the only board that's not got a loan at the present time. But their loan was only, I think it was maybe a year or 2 years, is paid. And obviously a pool has a finite lifetime before it needs significant investment into plant and equipment and that. So, we shouldn't be blaming anybody. What I feel we should be doing is looking at the great opportunities that we could have for a new pool in the south. And obviously, we've had a meeting this morning with it was mainly the two representatives from Rushen initially, and then other members joined beyond that. But we've had discussions with them. I know they're meeting with the Southern Pool Board because ultimately I've delivered the message that we're making this recommendation. It's now down to the Southern Pool Board how they respond to that. They are having that meeting, I believe, on Thursday with the Pool Board. But it is down to the Pool Board what they wish to do at that point in time before the debate in Tynwald.
You've talked about the strategic vision for the site, the new secondary school, whether that's obviously going to include a pool. And in a nutshell, in
5 years' time, what will Castle Rushen and the Castle Rushen site look like?
Well, obviously, we're just at the design stage. It's the very start of it. And, it is a capital scheme and it will have to be managed right. And certainly the biggest criticism that government's received over the Liverpool landing stage is costs. So should we be rushing things? No, we need to get it right, and we need to get it right at the design stage. I would like to see on the Castle Rushen site, and this is a national major investment into the south, the secondary school in 5 years' time at a good advanced stage. But I do want to keep reiterating, we're further forward than any previous government of getting some progress on that Castle Rushen site and school. So we're going to the design stage. There will be designs. We will engage with all stakeholders on that, and to maximise opportunity for the south. And I think that's the way we should be doing it as a national.
And again, just for clarity, do those plans involve a government-supported public swimming pool?
Obviously, it's a design stage at the present time, and funding at the present time is for the design. And the Treasury Minister has confirmed that there is funding available for the secondary school, but then it's going to be a phased approach on the rest of the site. Now, if you look at all other pools, they are funded through loans to the local authorities, but that finite detail has not been identified to date. So obviously the design will come up with the sports complex and what will be in it. How we fund going forward from that will be further decisions for government, but the Treasury Minister has confirmed that the design and the funding for the secondary school is certainly part of the budget process, because the new project process for government for capital schemes has changed, and I do think people are still getting used to that. But if you get to the stage where you've got the funding to go to the design, that's basically the same as the old pink book that used to have lines of budget on an annual basis.
So we have got a design for a secondary school. We haven't got a design for a pool, because that may come later.
No, that's not correct. The design will include a secondary school, a primary school, a sports complex, and the remit is to include a swimming pool within that design. So
from stage one, all of that will be included.
Stage one, yes, yeah.
But obviously it will be done effectively in chunks as the budget allows. Have I understood that correctly?
That's correct, yeah. And also we need to understand we've still got to have Castle Rushen High School operating on the site. So you could not possibly say we're actually relocating the whole of Castle Rushen High School. So we need to do it in a phased approach. And that is the right way with any major capital development in any area of the island.
When we talk about major capital development, which the government has control of, I'm going to be frank, government doesn't have a great track record for seeing through its strategic visions. It doesn't have a great track record for doing anything on time, anything on budget. Do you understand why people may have a lack of confidence in these bold plans for the future against the backdrop of losing a vital resource to many that is on their doorstep?
As I say, I've been a minister for 2.5 years. I was a very vocal backbencher prior to that. Clearly, when you step up to be a minister, you do need to look at the strategic vision for the island, the national priorities. I genuinely believe that Chief Minister's government is looking at those national priorities, and I think sometimes that does cause a little bit of unrest, but my view and the comment I will make today is this is a national priority for the south, that we get the southern swimming pool and the design for the whole of that site with access and maximise that site for the people of Castletown, for the future of Castletown and the southern area. And I do believe that that's what this government is doing. Obviously, with regards to the phases, the funding is there for the secondary school. The future phases beyond that clearly will be in future governments. However, I think it's really important to have that plan design there ready to go, and hopefully it won't sit on a shelf, and there will be politicians that are prepared to take tough decisions to save money whilst making massive strategic change of national importance to the island.
And just finally, Minister Edge, if this was happening in your constituency, or flip it, if you were a southern MHK, Do you think you'd share the same viewpoint?
I certainly would. I would welcome this as a development in my constituency. Clearly, the last secondary school that was built is in my constituency. Would it have been great to have a major sports complex, got great sport facilities? Would it have been great to have a swimming pool on site? Yes, it would. So I actually do always take that strategic national view of how can we progress, how can we move the island forward, and that's what national politicians should be doing. And obviously we're working closely with local authorities and commissioners on the pool boards, and particularly the South we've had a lot of engagement with over the last couple of years.
And to finish this episode of Newscast, let's hear from the people of Castletown and find out why the plans have created such a splash. Sorry, I'll stop now.
Excuse me, do you swim?
No, I don't, but my son does.
And he uses the pool over there?
He does. He goes to the high school.
So if it closes, he will lose out?
Oh, yeah, of course. And a lot of children, primary school children, will lose out.
How important do you think it is that kids learn to swim?
It's very important. We live by the sea.
Excuse me, madam, do you use the swimming pool here in Castletown?
I don't, but I would if it stayed open. I knew it was going to close down and it was in disrepair, so I really didn't think taking my kids would be the right thing to do, I guess.
My little brother goes to Castle Rushen, so he won't be able to go swimming anymore. So I like taking Amelia swimming as well, and the only place we can go is all the way up to Douglas now when we live in Port Erin and I don't drive, so getting an 18-month-old all the way to Douglas is a lot more hassle than it is to come to Castletown. Yeah.
There's not much to do down south anyway as it is, so taking away the swimming pool is a bit annoying.
A bit annoying?
Yeah, a bit annoying, quite annoying.
Do you use the swimming pool here in Castletown?
No.
Do you swim though?
Occasionally.
Where? At the NSC?
Peel, yeah.
A Peel?
Yeah.
Why don't you swim here, just out of my curiosity?
I don't swim that often.
No, so it's not the state of the pool?
No, probably haven't swum for about a year, to be honest, but when I do, so I'm generally down at Peel, and it's only maybe if I'm doing recovery exercise or something like that from cycling.
Can I swim?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Do you swim at this pool here?
Yeah, I do. I think it should be reversed. It shouldn't be closed at all.
What about the state of it?
I don't.
You happy with it?
I don't see a big problem with it, really.
I haven't for a long time.
But the fact that it could be threatened with closure, how do you feel about that?
Terrible.
Terrible?
Yes, it shouldn't be closed.
But you don't use it, so it doesn't affect you.
Because of all the children that go there. The kids from the Victoria Road and Ballasalla and everywhere go to that pool for swims and everything. Yes, I think they should keep it open.
My personal opinion is I blame the government all the way. They're spending money on stupid things.
Like?
It's just the government. Government spends money on stupid things all the time.
But you can't mention a stupid thing.
No, I can't.
No, I'm not off the thing. But you think the pool should stay open?
Oh, yes.
And should have money spent on it?
Yes, it should.
Now, this is obviously a developing story, so stick with Manx Radio for all the latest.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Little Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.